Usually a survival guide gives you, well, diagrams, right? Like
Yeah.
how to tie a tourniquet or how to build a fire, tangible mechanics.
Right, practical steps.
But what happens when the disaster isn't physical and you are just completely out of dry wood? Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today for you listening is to decode the architecture of resilience. We are looking at a single, deeply spiritual source text titled Talking About Jesus.
Yeah, it is a really fascinating piece of work.
Okay, let's unpack this because it reads like a survival manual for the soul, stripping away all those diagrams and using pure, violent nature poetry to describe human suffering.
It really is a manual that doesn't ease you into the theory. I mean, it drops you straight into the disaster.
First.
Exactly. You are immediately plunged into the elements to illustrate that terrifying universal feeling of just an absolute loss of control.
The imagery hits so hard, the uncertainties of life become a raging river with swift undertows and a blinding rain of despair.
Visceral stuff.
Completely. Actually, it made me think of a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. The hardest victim to save is a panicked one trying to swim on their own.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because they are still fighting the water.
Right. They have to completely exhaust themselves. Their limbs go heavy. They stop treading water. And only then can the swimmer safely pull them up.
Yeah.
And this document frames divine intervention the exact same way. Rescue activates at the point of total surrender.
What's fascinating here is the stark contrast used to explain how that rescue functions. On one side is this brutal environment, the biting cold of rejection, or the thunder of sudden tragedy.
It's just really intense phrasing.
It is. But against that is a perfect refuge under the Almighty's wing, creating this profound, sacred warmth.
A total shift.
Right. It's an effortless support system that, like you said with the swimmer, only engages when human strength gives out.
Finding that shelter isn't just about passively floating there, though. It requires a radical shift in internal focus.
It really does.
And honestly, this is where I kind of have to push back on the premise.
Ooh, how so?
Well, if you are standing in the middle of a literal or metaphorical hurricane, human instinct is to look at the wreckage.
Sure, self-preservation.
Exactly. You have to assess the damage to survive. Telling someone to ignore the hurricane swirling around them sounds downright reckless.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, I agree. But that's the exact trap being pointed out. There is an explicit plea to never look down into the abyss.
Or at the wreckage.
Right. When
Yeah.
you look at the swirling wreckage, your brain gets hijacked by the sheer scale of the problem.
Like cognitive overload.
It's exactly that. Cognitive overload sets in. Despair isn't just an emotion here, it's a gravitational pull.
Oh, wow.
And looking down aligns you with that gravity, causing your faith to waver and sinking you right back into the undertow.
Staring at the wreckage makes you part of the wreckage. You get paralyzed by what you're trying to process.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, overcoming that paralysis requires an ultimate shift in vantage point.
Meaning what?
Meaning, by intentionally keeping your chin lifted, you're forcing a psychological and spiritual elevation. The text argues you are lifted to sit in heavenly places.
I see.
From that high altitude, the furious storms and raging rivers down below just shrink into mere temporary shadows.
So what does this all mean? For you listening right now, this document maps a very specific journey from paralyzing fear to profound peace.
Absolutely.
It achieves that entirely by constantly elevating your vantage point. You start out drowning in the water, then you find shelter under a wing, and finally you are seated entirely above the storm.
It's a continuous upward motion, away from the mechanics of the disaster and toward the source of the rescue.
Which leaves us with something really compelling to think about. The underlying logic is that looking down at the wreckage will pull you under.
Yeah.
But it leaves you to wonder, does intentionally ignoring the destructive reality of a storm carry its own risks? Or, when you are completely out of diagrams and damp wood, is that radical, singular, upward focus the only true way to survive the unsurvivable?